Didn't get the notification. Oh, there we go.
How you doing, guys? Back to Chin Music. This is episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about some MLB April overreactions as well as MLB Roundtable and Studs and Scrubs. Pleased today to have Chris Talt join us, owner of Yankee Talks Instagram page. So, how you doing, Chris?
Doing great, doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So without further ado, let's get into it. I know we each have a bunch of different takes about our own teams and MLB in general. So Chris, what's some of your April overreactions so far?
The overreaction, it goes straight to the Yankees. Anthony Volpe, everybody's already bouncing on him this early in the season. He's hitting for more power than he did last year. 5 home runs. Just came off of a 5 for 10 series against Toronto, and average is at 228, but it's way too early to be bouncing on this kid right now to get him removed from the shortstop position. People want to give Peraza a try, but Volpe's again, the only thing that's down is his average from last year, and it's
So
only
what's the
April.
what's the call for? Is it to send him down or is it to bench?
Bench him, and benching a young guy at just turned 24 years old, that's going to hurt him a lot more than doing anything else. So I don't know
I,
why you do that,
I
especially in April.
I feel like, especially because he's already providing good value with the defense, right? Like he's a Gold Glover. So, and he's shown you before that even when it's not clicking exactly with the average, like he's still capable of getting you big hits. Like postseason last year, he definitely had his moments, right? So, especially for Peraza, because I don't think Peraza's. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I definitely don't see him as the future of the position, especially not with Volpe there.
He's definitely not the future. He's gotten some extended run at certain points, but he hasn't shown anything great. He started a couple playoff games in 2022 with the Yankees, played some good defense, but he's not someone you're like, oh, he should be starting, unless you really want to make an argument for George Lombard, who's in Double A right now with the Yankees, but he's too young to come up and help this team. So it's Volpe until it goes horribly wrong. And right now, production wise, other than batting average, he's producing at a pretty good level.
We're at what 75 or 80 at bats into the season right now. I don't know. I don't know his exact numbers, but that's where I see
Yeah.
most everyday starters at that number, maybe 90, but still
Mhm.
not even approaching 20% of what an everyday starter should get in terms of plate appearances yet.
And again, he could just have one good day and average goes from 228 to 240 and everybody's silenced.
That's true. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like, especially because it's granted, a month is a good sample size, but if you're making long-term decisions like benching what could be a franchise cornerstone, I feel like that's way too soon to make calls on. And I mean, we'll see that for the other end too. Like, just because a guy's been producing for a month doesn't necessarily mean he's, going to be an all-star by any means. I might have a different take on that for some of my Mets pitchers, but I don't know. I just feel like he would have to be hitting really, really poorly, I think, for that month sample size to be telling.
I think the
Exactly.
perfect example of a month sample not being enough is how many players have won Player of the Month to have never been heard from ever again.
Yeah, I mean April Lindor, right? That was the whole thing every year is that Lindor couldn't hit for shit in April, and then he goes ahead and has a fantastic season anyway, right? So,
So he's due for a terrible month coming up then.
let's fingers crossed not. But did you want to go into some of your April overreactions?
Yeah, I got a lot. I got a lot more than Chris because I've got a lot more grievances with the Phillies than Chris does with the Yankees. First of all, I am declaring it right now. Unless Dombrowski makes some franchise altering moves, the Phillies are not getting past the NLDS this year because the team cannot hit at all, and it's embarrassing. And I'm saying this after they come off winning a series against the Red Hot Cubs. The game on Saturday was like no brainer. They were going to win that game. Friday they got shut out. Yesterday they only won 3-1, and they won that game because the reliever that the Cubs put in walked three guys, and they obviously got help from the runner on second base in extra innings. They still only mustered up 5 hits during the regular 9 innings of the game, and the big guys are still not hitting, as evidenced by one of your scrubs that I'm sure you'll mention later in the show today. And the one guy who was producing all season, Kyle Schwarber, has simply seemed to forget how to swing a baseball bat. I would say that this team is playing a poor man's version of banana ball, but that's insulting to banana ball players because those guys can hit on stilts and they can still put the ball out of the ballpark. The Phillies are incapable of doing that right now. I was I was watching yesterday, and honestly, that the game yesterday is what saved me from me doing the opening today and going on a 10-minute tangent about how nothing's going right. It saved me yesterday in two ways. One, they won the game, and two, Aaron Nola looked like a semi-decent major league starter. He does still not look like the guy who's getting paid 20 plus $1 million a year right now. And I don't think he's ever going to reach that. But he that was a very like I will say very good. I am not going to say it was a great start because he went 6 innings and struck out, I think, six or seven. A very good start. I'm not going to call it great yet. But I still am shaky about the bullpen. I am still mad at Thompson for putting in Jordan Romano yesterday. That was a poor move. I don't know why Matt Strom was not in the game. I don't think he was. Based on pregame interviews, it sounded like most of the team was available. So I would be curious why Romano was in the game. Um, uh, as a fan, I hope that a gutsy performance like that in extra innings against a team that's been playing as well as the Cubs right now will propel him into being not a 33 in a week ERA guy. I don't know. He looked fine. He still was not throwing his off speed the way I want to see it. Um, I have I have other thoughts too, but I won't take over the podcast with my disdain for the Phillies right now. But my what I want to get out of that response is that unless I see a perennial all-star traded for at the deadline that is not a reliever, I have no faith come October. None.
Like I feel like we're getting to a point where because how do you, and I guess you kind of hinted at it when you said trade for a perennial all-star, like how do you turn things around? Because like you said, like in the podcast we had a couple days ago, like it's not like you can just cut these guys, right? Like they're here for the long run, or at least a lot of them are. And they're get making enough money where they you're not going to bench them. Like got to play them every day. There's a couple kids in the system, but like Aiden Miller's not going to come save this team in 2025. So like what if you were I guess give me some guys that if you were Dombo, like this is who I'm getting in July to help right the ship.
So offensively is hard because I like obviously there's plenty of guys that I would want, but it's too early to tell who's going to be available, I think. I read I read something from uh Bob Nightingale, and I'll put minimal stock in that they were looking at um Helsley, which would be great. That's bullpen help. In terms of bat, any starting center fielder. So like I I probably should have looked
Probably
at
Luis Robert, right? I feel like he's the first one that comes to mind for me, even though he's not been great. He's just a warm
he's better
body.
than Johan
Yeah.
Rojas. So yeah, I would take that. I'd be weary of the White Sox asking price for him only because I know what they were going after when when the Phillies were trying to trade for Crochet last year. And I'm not putting them in the same category whatsoever. But the package that the um the White Sox were asking for from the Phillies was a little bit it was a little bit too much. So I'd be curious what they're asking for Robert. I would imagine it would be less. Okay. All right, see, all right. If the Cardinals keep doing poorly, I and he's not a perennial all-star, I would like a Lars Nootbaar guy in center field, and I would send Rojas down, and Marsh probably goes back in that deal to St. Louis because I think part of him just needs to change the scenery now. I think he was probably slightly overhyped anyway, but when he was on the team in 2022 and 23 for parts of it too, he was much better than he was right now. I think, and he's one of the guys that is expendable. He's one of the guys that can go. He's not making that much money. The Phillies didn't sign him to some long-term deal. I think his rookie contract's up maybe next year, if not the year after. So, and I think that he's got enough potential that he could serve as a major league centerpiece in a trade for new bar and maybe a minor league pitcher. Um, I would like a deal like that. Because I think the Cardinals come July, as everybody's sort of seen, will maybe not be totally selling, but the ever famous term retooling. So somebody like that. I don't want I don't know if I want the farm to be sold, but I somebody like Newbar is miles better than what either of the guys in center field is doing right now, and he's hitting. I think he's playing well this year, but he's not an all-star.
It's a tough balance, I think, between wanting to maximize the window because again, these guys aren't getting any older. That most of them are kind of reaching their mid late 30s. But at the same time, recognizing that you need to have some people in the farm to be ready to take over when these guys eventually have their contracts run out. So I guess as we'll get closer to the deadline, it'll be easier to kind of see the direction of this team and I think it would take a really underwhelming first half of the season to blow it all up. But at the same time, you kind of what we've seen so far has not necessarily been encouraging, although they did win the series. You're certainly looking for a lot more to have to want to kind of mortgage the future to extend this team's run, at least for the season.
The problem with the guys who are at the top of the system, with the exception of Painter, who I wouldn't trade for almost anybody, is Miller's got nowhere to play. He's it, but seemingly they want to keep him at shortstop, and so you run into the problem with Turner's here for the next 8 years, 8 or 9 years now. He's not going anywhere. Stott's still got 4 years left on his rookie contract, and I would imagine that they put 3 years left, maybe. I would imagine that they want to try to keep him cheap. So in a year or two, they might try to get him on a cheap extension. Miller does not have the arm yet to play third base. He's got nowhere to go. So as much as I like him as a prospect, he'd be the first one out the door if the Phillies could find somebody that would make the team significantly better at the moment and somebody who would play every day. If I see somebody like him traded for a reliever, then Dombrowski's got to go too. And I know that's a Philly overreaction, but it, there's he's a guy that can be traded, but he can't be traded just for the sake of making the team better.
Yeah. So one more thing on this before we move on. I feel like Turner does wasn't it floated at one point that Turner could play center field? I don't see him play short every day, so I don't know if that's something that was a possibility, isn't anymore. That doesn't sound very encouraging. But
It was the
yeah.
same. It's a possibility in the same way that Rob Thompson said JT Real Muto playing the outfield was a possibility in spring training. I think it was floated out there because he's fast and theoretically should be good defensively. He's not. And honestly, Trey Turner's hitting worse than Johan Rojas at the moment, and Johan Rojas is a better center fielder. So I think that messes with way too much stuff. And Turner needs to focus on learning how to hit the ball at the moment. And I think throwing him in a new position that is for most of the game, like vital to winning a game is not going to go well. That would bring me back to Reese Hoskins playing in the outfield in 2017, 18, and parts of 19 actually. And that went terribly. So if that's being considered, there needs to be some discussions in the front office about who's making those kinds of decisions. That will end my Phillies rant for the day.
All right. Moving on to my overreaction. I believe that the Mets will have not one but two all-star starting pitchers this year. Now I'm pretty confident that as long as he stays healthy, Kodai Senga will be one of them. He's never had an issue of being a poor pitcher. It's more so that his biggest problem is availability. And so far, he's managed to not only stay healthy but go deep into games, which is a really nice sign. So I would say that Senga is definitely one, and then my two would probably be one of Tyler McGill, who's looked fantastic, and Chris's favorite closer, Clay Holmes, who is now starting to really look nice in the starting role for the Mets. I know at the time it was definitely an experiment, to say the least, when they chose to bring him in as a starting pitcher. But I think the development of the kick change in particular has been a great addition to his repertoire. And it's been necessary for him to grow into that starting pitcher role and continue to get deep into games. We've seen over the last couple of weeks and in the last couple of starts, he's never had an issue with the first couple innings. It's more so durability. And as he gets later, deeper into games and batters start to see him for the third time through the order, then he starts to struggle, especially with location. But definitely the early returns have been encouraging. The stuff has never been a problem. It's always more so been the command, and I've been really encouraged so far with what I've seen. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Chris for his thoughts on Clay Holmes' early
No,
starts of the season.
I'm going to be interested to see with Clay Holmes. Now, last year, you can kind of compare him to a Jordan Hicks, who was moved when he signed with the Giants, reliever turned starter, had a very strong first half of the year, and second half of the year definitely fell off a bit. But I'm going to be interested to see how Holmes really just keeps that going over a full year. We saw it with Michael King when he got traded to the Padres, the end of that year with the Yankees. He was moved to a starting pitching role and he went to the Padres in year one, dominant year. And I think that 1 month there helped him really get into that starting pitching mentality. As for Holmes now, we're gonna have to see him do it for a whole year straight without really doing this before. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be
the
interesting to
strength has got
see.
to play a factor there too.
We
Just
did we saw
the
that, yeah, saw that with Jordan Hicks all of last year. And
mhm.
second half of the year, we saw it in our fantasy league, Jordan Hicks. First half of the year dominant, and then second half of the year he bounced around on a couple teams.
Tanking ERAs left and right.
Yeah, he hasn't exactly been fantastic this year either, Hicks, I mean. And I still think he's an interesting comparison because I think they're similar in the fact that obviously Clay Holmes doesn't throw a 105-mile-an-hour
Mhm.
sinker, but they are primarily ground ball pitchers um, who are able to use their sinker as their primary pitch, and then kind of work off of that with some nice off speed. So it'll be interesting to see how Holmes continues to develop. Um, Not saying that he's an ace or anything, but at least for the first half of the first quarter, I guess, of the season, the first month, he's looked really nice, and I'm hoping that he continues to shine because eventually, when Sean Manaea comes back, the Mets will have some very interesting decisions to make in the rotation. Tyler McGill, I think, has pitched well enough where he needs to stay in the rotation. I don't know who gets sent down because at a certain point, it's going to be Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, and David Peterson. So that's seven pitchers. I know they've expressed interest in going six man because, quite frankly, Senga needs the extra day.
And
But
you could even say that Holmes needs that too. That could help him out in the long run too, just giving him that extra day of rest
Yeah,
coming
that would
into
lead to
in
probably
his
4 or 5
first
less
year.
starts too. Like just it's less innings.
yeah, I think the six man is something that it's been interesting to see its development. I think over the course of since I've been following baseball, because I remember when that was sort of a almost nobody touched it. It was like we have five guys, they go every fifth day. But now I feel like it's more common than ever just because of what you guys have been saying. Like guys are throwing less innings. It's become more about what can you give me in 5 innings instead of, kind of wearing it and going 6 innings or 7 innings. And we still see that from time to time as the bullpen management is still paramount in today's game. But um,
It
being able
becomes a
to,
strategic advantage too to have 6 guys because that's less times each team, especially in the division, is seeing a given guy.
that's true.
Like when the Mets have had somewhat of a turnover, but I'm sure, and I could ask a Braves fan this too. The amount of times that I've watched Aaron Nola pitch against the Mets and the Braves is honestly it's probably 30 or 40 times now. So just even that extra day every once in a while is going to have certain guys miss a team, and the more a team sees a guy, the more the advantage goes to the hitter. So it's a strategic advantage in addition to being better for the guys who are in the rotation, just from a pure health perspective.
For sure. Yeah, I could definitely see the angle behind that, right? Especially when, like you said, divisions they're not playing each other as much as they are with the new additions to the schedule. But even then, still just having that extra guy that's just another arm, another repertoire, another delivery that batters have to worry about could be the difference over 162.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess we could go into some other overreactions. Um, the Braves are a team that has been better than their abysmal start to the season, but at the same time, not necessarily the dominant force that we have become accustomed to seeing, especially me and Andrew in the NL East, seeing them win the regular season every year.
Except for
So
last year.
except for last year, as you would love to mention. So as of right now, even the Nationals are above them in NL East standings, leading by. Well, I guess they're even on games back, but winning percentage is about .004 higher. So I guess we could talk about both of them, both the Nats being um, better than we expected. I don't want to say great because I just watched them for 4 games and I could tell you for sure that they are not a great team, but definitely not as bad as the White Sox last year or teams like the Rockies this year. So
They're going to play spoilers this year, I think. I think that they're going to be a team that they could. I'm comfortable saying that I would not at all be surprised if they are slightly above 500. I mean, like a game or two. That might be a stretch. They might not be, but I think 83 or 84 wins is not totally out of the question for them if the young guys play the right way. But at most, they're gonna spoil some games for some people who are gonna make the playoffs, as you saw they did with the Mets yesterday. The Phillies play them this week. I I will bet all of my savings again that those are not going to sweep them, and the Nationals are going to give them a hard time. I think they're probably going to do that because they got some guys that can hit. Mackenzie Gore is pitching really well right now too. So if a team catches him, unless they're have a perennial all-star starting pitcher, uh, they might be at a slight disadvantage. So I don't I don't I don't foresee them going on some insane run this year, but I definitely see them playing spoilers for some other teams that are going to make the playoffs.
yeah,
I
they've
agree with
been
that.
yeah.
See, I mean, CJ Abrams, obviously a very good shortstop, future shortstop. And last year, we saw it last year at times too. What was their nickname? The Scrappy Gnats, or something like
That's
that.
the first
Yeah,
I've heard of it. Really,
I
I
heard
that
it
believe,
once. Yeah,
yeah, that was their nickname last year. And sticking with that early this year, granted, it's only the end of April and long time to go, but
they see the capability.
you definitely see a future there with some of those cornerstone potential players. And one of those, I'd really like to see Cruz get hot. We've seen a couple flashes so far, but if he gets hot, I could see them, like Andrew said, taking maybe 81, 82, 83 wins this season if all goes planned.
Yeah, they have some players that other teams would kill to have on their team. James Wood is the biggest example that comes to my mind. And we could even do an overreaction about him because as I've seen him over the last couple weeks, like there is no doubt in my mind that this dude is going to be an MVP candidate. Like you see the way this kid swings the bat, he's like at least 6'6", maybe taller. This dude has bat speed like Yordan Alvarez, and I don't want to give him too much credit, but you see him play against you for 4 games, and when he gets a hold of the ball, he crushes it. Like it's crazy. So I would not be surprised to see him and Cruz kind of being that dynamic duo for the next decade for this franchise. And as Andrew said, Mackenzie Gore's looked really nice. I think he's finally started to show you that he's capable of living up to that top pitching prospect status that he held not too long ago. And even the rest of their pitchers. Jake Irvin has had a really nice start to the season. Mitchell Parker, another guy that's definitely I don't know if he's a Cy Young winner, obviously, but every team has those pitchers and those prospects that come up that even though they're relatively unheralded, they're damn good baseball players. And you're especially for the Nats who are really in a transition year of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. There's I think they're maybe next year you could see them be some sneaky dark horse wildcard contenders.
Yeah, especially if they make a couple. They're not going out spending a fortune this offseason, but they sign a couple of veteran guys to 1 or 2 year deals, get some older guys in the clubhouse. Yeah, and Keibert Ruiz too. I think I
Yeah,
haven't followed him all that closely, but he's a very very good major league catcher.
yeah, and they've certainly shown that they can spend if they need to, right? They signed Max Scherzer, I think is the biggest one that comes to mind for me. One of the at the time probably the marquee pitching signing at the time, and that worked.
Strasburg too to that
Yeah,
insane deal. It worked out
mhm,
terribly, but they spent a fortune on him.
right. It just not although it didn't work out, I think as anyone would have hoped, the fact that they were able to say, like, you're our guy, you're our hometown #1 overall pick. We're going to do everything it takes to keep you in house. Says a lot about the ownership group, and not that
Hmm.
they're ever going to reach a $300 million payroll, but they've shown over the last decade that when they have guys that they'd like to keep that are necessary for them to keep as prospective contenders, that they will do what it takes for what it's worth. So I would definitely not be surprised to see them making the NL East even more difficult to contend in over the next
Hmm.
couple years. So
Yeah, they'll take the spot of the Braves. I think I called in the first episode that I think done. The Braves dynasty is over. And not that they have started proving me wrong in any way. They've played better, but I think I expected that they were not going to play at a 14 win pace or whatever it was. We started recording our first episode, but they just had like 3 wins. Um, but I don't know. I think Olson's playing better. He's heating up a little bit. I don't know off the top of my head how Riley is doing. I think those are the two big guys that you got to look at right now with Acuna out of the lineup. I still don't. I don't know. We'll see how his legs hold up with his second surgery. And Strider had a setback. I don't know how he's progressing at the moment. Um, I don't know. I don't see them. I see them playing spoilers this year. Worse, more worse, like worse than the Nationals. They'll be above 500, I think, but I don't think they're going to be the 90-win team anymore.
yeah, looking for an update on Strider. Um,
It's easy. Yeah, he got a diagnosis a couple days ago about his hamstring injury, so he's not even. I don't even think he's throwing anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either. At least I haven't seen anything about that. Um, One more team I wanted to highlight for kind of overreactions is a team that we've actually talked about on the first episode, the Detroit Tigers. So the Tigers, since we've talked about them, are 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and they are now 2.5 games ahead of the Guardians for sole possession of first place of the AL Central. So if you were to look at actually the whole league, I believe, yeah, they are tied for the third best record in baseball, right with the Dodgers. So one overreaction that I have is that the Dodgers, or not the Dodgers, the Tigers, in what is not, I think most would agree is not a fantastic AL this year, with the
Unless you're
exception
going to
of a
go after the AL Central.
no, the AL Central's they're a decent division, but I think the AL in general has been underperforming this year. So I would
Uh,
not be surprised to see the Tigers be a real contender in the AL and potentially challenge for a World Series. So curious on your thoughts on that.
when you look at the Tigers, I still think in this American League, it's definitely a down league this year. But I still, as a Yankees fan, gonna come across bias here. It's still the Yankees league to win and just get to the World Series, see what happens after that. But the Tigers, in my opinion,
No
right now,
homers. No homers. You're off.
the the Tigers pose the biggest threat to the Yankees. Their rotation with Skubal, Flaherty, Olson, Mize, and Joe, they're dominant. That's gonna get you places, especially with a veteran like Flaherty back on your team this year who wasn't there last year, has made the playoff run, got a World Series, and now you get Skubal going back there for a second year potentially. This rotation, it's lights out. They can go with anybody in Major League Baseball right now. And even deeper into this year, I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, the postseason experience they got last year, I think you see that with a lot of teams that are at the beginning of their contention window. I feel like it's very hard for teams when they first kind of transition from a rebuilding franchise to a contending franchise to immediately go right in and have playoff success. And it was not that they didn't. Obviously, I believe they beat the Royals last year to get to the ALDS.
They beat the Astros.
Astros.
They knocked off Houston, and something I compared that to before. Say what you want to say, Houston 2017. I don't want to dive into that, but Houston before that 2017 playoffs, they got knocked out, I believe in 15 and 16, both in the division series, if I'm not mistaken. And then they went out in 17, brought in Verlander, an ace at the time. I'm not comparing him to Flaherty, but you bring in that guy with playoff experience who can help this young rotation with already one of the best pitchers in baseball in Skubal, and
Cheating
th
helps.
they're gonna win. The Tigers are, I think they're gonna win that division. The Royals, I think, overachieved last year, and the Guardians, they're always gonna be good, but I don't think they're gonna win it.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see as obviously again a month into the season what teams start to pull away and what teams are were expected to pull away but are still there. One team that has been definitely struggling out the gate is division rival of the Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles, which they're playing
Horrible.
right now. They've not been good at all. And I think part of that, so from what I've heard from the fan base, a lot of the fans expected the GM to go out there and help really reinforce the rotation. And what you've started to see is Zach Eflin has been good when healthy, but he's hurt. Grayson Rodriguez was kind of expected to be the ace of that staff with the departure of Corbin Burns. He's been hurt. And with really a lack of depth in the starting pitching for the Baltimore Orioles, you're throwing guys like Charlie Morton, I think is like their 3 starter right now.
And he's actually hurt. He's 42 years old, and you brought in a guy, Sagano, who's 35. I mean, you have this young core that, accompanied with the right pitching, they'd be the best team in the American League if they had any pitching. But they don't have anything. And it's really, again, I don't like the Orioles, but the ownership has done them wrong to this point with the core that they have.
It's a shame because I think it's a very interesting parallel between the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals, who we just covered, right? Like we just said, the Nationals ownership has shown that they can spend if they need to, whereas the Orioles, like, who have they really signed or extended recently? I think they extended Mullins, but like they didn't extend Manny. They have shown no interest in re-signing Henderson or Rushman or any of those guys that are coming up. So you have to be thinking as an Orioles fan that the window is like probably the next 3 to 5 years, right? And then guys are going to start getting expensive, and you have to capitalize. It would be so frustrating right now to me to be an Orioles fan and to see the potential that this team has because they are not far removed from being a dominant team a couple of years ago, and everyone just kind of assuming like, hey, this is the new team to beat in the AL, and they've really just fallen flat. And of course, the players are not blameless in this case, but at the same time, they can't. You gotta. It's always got to be a mix of veterans who have already done it and the young kids that are starting to really come up and be superstars for the first time. So
And
it's just a mess.
also to show that after they lost Santander to the Blue Jays last year, they didn't pivot at all. They have Ramon Laureano out in the outfield today playing.
Well,
What are we doing here?
Santander hasn't been much of a loss this year.
He hasn't
He's been
been,
playing
but
really bad.
he hasn't been. But based off of last year's team and his production, how were you gonna plan on getting that back? You had to bring in someone, and they
Yeah.
lost their best starting pitcher, and they lost Santander, who at the time last year was their best offensive player.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they I believe they addressed that by signing Tyler O'Neill, to which who I would classify as a quote Will Pond signing because to me that just feels like a oh we lost our this great player so we're gonna bring in the Walmart version and hope that he can replicate half of his production and
And he's someone who can never stay on the field. He's playing maybe little less than almost 100 games a year.
If that.
It's like the Orioles ownership coming out and saying, like you said, Menson, coming out and saying, we just lost our best player. Here's something. It's not good, but here's something we'll give you, and hopefully, it's a shot in the dark, but hopefully it works.
yeah it's just not good enough. I think I don't think it's crazy to say that the recent crop of players that the Orioles have come up have been one of the best young cores that has come up in Major League Baseball in quite some time. It's not often that you have like I think they had the number one farm system for like 3 years running, and not even they still have guys on the way. Like Kobe Mayo still even hasn't locked down a job. Like Heston Kjerstad is still someone that has to really break into the team, and like there's still so many guys that Jackson Holiday is obviously going to be a great baseball player for years, and he hasn't even started to scratch the surface. So it's a shame. already kind of beat the drum on this one, but I think the more I talk about it, the more it's occurring to me like, wow, this is awful, and I just feel bad for him.
No, I with us bringing up Nationals and Orioles, I have to. Which team in that area, in the DMV area, which team do you have faith more in the future, the Nationals or the Orioles?
I'm gonna say the
Future of this
Nationals.
season?
No, not this season, not just this season, but going forward to the next 3, 5 years.
I think the Nationals, and that's not because the Orioles don't have a good team. They do have a good team. They have great players. But I have more faith in the Nationals front office to make the necessary moves to build that team. The Nationals still have a bunch of guys on the cusp of coming up too, I believe. Like the Juan Soto return from the Padres. They've Robert Hassell, who is still on the way. I'm trying to look right now.
I think
But
he's the last one from that trade
he's
that
the
hasn't
last one
come
from
up
that
yet.
deal.
Yes.
Yeah, but I believe they have other guys um that are still on the cusp of coming up. Like this team is not their guys aren't up all the way yet. The Orioles basically with most of their guys are on the way. Harlan Susana is another one. He's a pitcher that throws triple digits in that system as a starting pitcher. So he's definitely intriguing. But just I feel more confident that if the Nats have a good year this year, that the ownership is going to do what it takes to add those necessary pieces. So then they're not going to go shopping in the bargain bin at least. And that's not to say the Orioles won't have success because it would be insane to close the door on that team so soon. But for me, I would say that I would feel more comfortable in the Nats being a contender in the next few years than the Orioles. So with that, I think we're going to transition to studs and scrubs. I know we wanted to I definitely want to talk about mine just to see Andrew's reaction. So I'll go first. My stud of this week is former Phillies player JP Crawford. So he went 10 for 22, 2 home runs, 5 runs, 8 RBI, good for a 1.25 OPS. Another former top prospect. I think at this point, we know he's never really going to be a superstar per chance, but he definitely has progressed into a solid everyday major league shortstop. And as you see, he's going to have weeks where he's very, very good. So he's definitely somebody that, again, you need those guys, just above average major leaguers to come in and kind of help carry the team on their back for a couple weeks at a time when necessary. So a really nice week for JP and a really nice year so far for the Mariners, who are actually 16-12 to start the year.
We all going now, or are you gonna give your scrub and then gonna let set me free?
I'll give my scrub. I'll give my scrub. So my scrub is current Phillies player Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper has went 2 for 23, good for 0 home runs, 2 RBI, 1 run, and a below average 480 OPS. He has 1 stolen base, which I've already talked about because I would not even classify that as a stolen base because he took it from Edwin Diaz, who can't hold runners on for shit. So, do you want to give a quick spiel on Bryce or?
No, because not on Bryce specifically, because I'm not particularly concerned about that at the moment. He doesn't tend to hit super well for stretches. It's funny you picked him because you could have picked anybody in the entire lineup with almost the exact same stats. Perhaps worse because at least both the hits he's gotten has produced RBIs. Um, that's all I got at the moment. I am happy for JP Crawford though, actually. Because that was a win-win deal. I was happy getting back Segura. The other two relievers that the Phillies got in that deal 6 years ago now. Probably pitching in the Frontier League or something like that. Uh, I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that because he was not playing well in Philadelphia, and the Phillies got a at the time an all-star second baseman back. So good for him. I think he was a likable guy that it just didn't work out for. I'm not particularly concerned about Harper at the moment. Get back to me at the end of May if this is still going on and he's 4 for 44 or something like that. Yeah, then we'll have a serious conversation.
All
I'll
right,
go for my studs
yeah.
and scrubs now too. So my stud for the week is actually Pirates center fielder now, O'Neal Cruz, who last week it was hitting 346, excuse me, with a 393 on base percentage and a 731 slugging percentage, good for an over 1100 OPS. Um, I I have come to dislike the Pirates simply because there has been this one-sided rivalry created with the people out here in Pittsburgh when I say that I'm a Phillies fan. So now I don't like the Pirates simply because they created this rivalry. But I like watching O'Neal Cruz play baseball because the dude is massive and he can run. I love guys who are fast and can just ruin a game with their legs. And I think he's one of them, but he's clearly come into his power, at least in the last week. I believe yesterday, because it might have been Saturday's game, his fourth leadoff home run, and he's only been a leadoff hitter for about 2 weeks now. Um, so I think I don't. He's certainly not going to keep up this pace, but I think he's definitely settling in now to being a well above average Major League Baseball player in a team that desperately, desperately needs some of something to be excited about. And I think that's something right now is O'Neal Cruz beyond the obvious Paul Skeens. And my scrub for the week, and actually I'm going to replace him for my scrub for the year right now and get rid of Romano. Anthony Santander has had just about the worst offensive performance of any free agent that has signed this offseason. But particularly this last week, up until yesterday, he did not have a hit last week. Um, but last week and so after yesterday when he got hit, last week he was 1 for 18 with 1 run scored. And the 1 for 18 is actually a home run. And he has 3 RBIs. It's good for a 413 OPS. For the year, however, though, I do not believe it is actually all that much better. Um, Hang on a second. Pulling up his 2025 stats. Yeah, he is 19 for 106 with 9 RBIs and a 560 OPS. So I have no idea what's going on with him. Um, but and he's been bad all season, but particularly the last week where he did not get a hit until literally the last day of the week. If I'm looking from fantasy stats perspective, so Sunday's the last day of the week. Um, that's pretty abysmal for a guy who's getting paid big bucks. It was supposed to be a big move for the Toronto Blue Jays.
It has to hurt as a Blue Jays fan having to want to sign all these free agents being so close to the whole Otani's on a flight to Toronto thing, and they were definitely in on a lot of other guys too. I believe at one point they were in on Pete Alonso, and boy, would you wish you would had Pete Alonso right now instead of Anthony Santander. So it's got to stink when they finally spend their money on somebody and he's been as bad as he has.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, let's hear our first guest stubs and scrubs for the week.
All right, I'm gonna go stud first, and then I'm gonna need a minute to rant on my scrub because you guys might know where this is going. But my stud for the week, Alex Bregman, 8 game hitting streak. All he's doing right now since he's been in Boston is hitting. And if you look at his stats right now, he's before that 8 game hitting streak started, he had 2 offer games, and before that he had a 5 for 5 game with 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and he's just on a tear, hitting 319, 5 homers, 22 RBIs. And you saw it last year in Houston. He had a bit of a down year, and since he's been with the Red Sox, you were people were kind of curious how it was going to work with him and Devers, who was going to play where and everything like that. But Bregman solved everything quickly, hitting great, and really just what Boston needed for a kind of a young team that wanted to make a jump from their last couple of years of not being too good.
For
Yeah,
sure.
he's definitely having a good week.
And then I don't even know where to start on my scrub. Devin Williams.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead,
8 innings
Chris.
pitched this year. 11.25 ERA, just blew another save against the Blue Jays. Thankfully, the Yankees came back, won their doubleheader. There you go. But up 2-1 in the game, Devin Williams comes in. 3 batters, all reach base, doesn't retire batter. Yankee fans chanting, "We want Weaver," the whole thing. And if you're Devin Williams, you come here to New York, the whole thing, the beard thing doesn't mean anything to me, but you come here to New York, you say you're not going to you're not comfortable pitching without your beard. You get your beard back here. The Yankees change something that they haven't changed in their whole franchise history,
100
and
years.
you're pitching to an 11.25 ERA, and you just lost your closer role. What are we doing here?
Want Jordan Romano? Want to trade?
Devin Williams, I'd rather have Clay Holmes than Devin Williams.
I
And
bet
that
you
says
would.
a lot.
I bet you would. I would.
Take me back to the closer, Clay Holmes. I'm taking him 7 days out of the week over Devin Williams right now.
Yeah,
Pete Alonso, I hate to say this, but Pete Alonso might have actually broke him. Man,
it brings me great joy to hear those words come out of a Yankees fans' mouth. Yeah, I saw some cardiac Clay games last year, and it definitely felt. I mean, obviously he wasn't doing anyone favors with the walks, but it definitely felt like the Yankee defense at times was uh
the
definitely
Yan
responsible for some of
the
them.
Yankee defense last year was far worse than it. This year, it's been a great defense. I believe right now they're tied for third in defensive runs saved, plus 14 in all of Major League Baseball. So this year, it's been a drastic difference. But Devin Williams, he's giving up hard hit ball after hard hit ball. It's not like slow little choppers like Clay Holmes would have given up. It's barrel. He's getting barreled, and he's not locating. Also, 7 walks in 8 innings. We were supposed to be getting one of the best closers, and thankfully, we didn't give up much for him. Nestor Cortez, oh well, but he's got to pick it up. I'm still confident he's going to, but it was an easy choice as a scrub for this week with how he just lost his closer spot.
Well, I think all Yankee fans will be hoping that the little break that he's going to get from the role. Obviously, Weaver's more than capable of filling in the role. But at some point, you'll start to see the old Devin Williams. He's been very consistent his whole career. And I definitely, even the pitch to Alonso wasn't necessarily a bad one. Just kind
Uh-huh.
of a case of good hitting. So,
And
gotta be
also
hoping.
the
Yeah,
the stats with Williams, they do drastically change when he hits May through August. His stats improve drastically every season you can look at with him. He's gotten off the slow starts, but it hasn't been this bad.
yeah. So with that, I think that will wrap up our studs and scrubs, and it'll also wrap up episode 3 of Chin Music. So well, I would expect, I think episode 4 won't be out for a little bit. I think just because I personally have finals and then move out situations. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted on that. But thank you, Chris, for joining us for episode 3. This will definitely not be the last time we have you on here. I think this was actually a really nice one. I think we had some pretty nice back and forth going between the three of us. So definitely want to make sure that happens again.
Absolutely. I'm hoping to have Chris on again when the Yankees are shipping off guys left and right at the end of July.
Yeah. We'll ship you Devin Williams if you want a new relief pitcher if you need help right
Fine,
now.
fine. He cannot be worse than Jordan Romano.
I think he arguably can be.
He almost blew a 7-run lead against the Miami Marlins. At least losing to the Mets is respectable.
Yeah, damn right it is. Mets are a great baseball team. So
All right. All right.
all right. That'll do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be sure to keep you guys posted.